How's it going, guys? It's me again, and today we're going to be going on to our next video in our little lecture series. And today we're going to be talking about a brief review of cellular reproduction. Alright, so before I start off on this, I'd first like to say thank you for all the emails. I've actually received quite a few from you guys, and I'd like to address a few of those questions. So one of the questions I've actually got asked a lot, which is really surprising, was about my voice. I guess a lot of you guys think my voice is just very monotone. I'm sorry about that. I usually record these videos around like 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, so my voice is probably pretty tired sounding at the time. So I apologize for that, but not much I could do about it, unfortunately. So anyways, thank you again for all the support you guys have given me so far. And also, before I start this, I'd like to say that this little lecture series in particular is going to be very, it's going to have a few gaps in it. And the reason for that is because this is just such a in-depth topic, and it's so complex in so many different levels. It's really hard just to have this in a short little lecture series. And B, the whole reason I'm having these lecture series isn't so I can give you guys everything you guys need to know. I'm just giving you guys some of the concepts that a lot of people have trouble with, so you guys can continue this on with your studies and sort of use it as an aid. So again, if you guys would like to see another video on this or a more in-depth analysis on this, again, I can try my best, but you know, there's no guarantees about anything, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and move forward. Alright, so before we start anything off, we first have to talk about the difference between sexual and asexual reproduction. And as many of you guys already know this, but I'd still like to get this over. And I mean, if I get this over with and I click slide, then you know everybody's on the same page. So sexual reproduction is simply just reproduction that requires a partner in order to reproduce. So this is going to be, as you guys can probably guess, like, you know, having a kid. You know, you can't just, women can't just like wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to have a kid, at least in humans anyways, and, you know, just out of the blue, you know, she has a kid. It doesn't work that way, right? So you have to have a sperm and ovum in humans, and, you know, that's how you get a kid. That's sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is, as you can tell right there, the ability to reproduce with itself. So that's going to be like your skin cells. That's going to be like your muscle cells and such. These are cells, and there are also some organisms out there that asexual reproduce. But however, in this course we're going to be talking about humans. But basically, this is just going to be reproducing the exact copy of the cell so that it can continue its function, or so on and so forth. A few things about each of these. Asexual reproduction, as you can guess, is going to have less genetic variation, which means it's going to have a lower chance of survival. That makes sense because if you think about it in terms of population, if the whole population is exactly the same, there's environment change that selects against that, as you can see in my previous video, then that whole population is going to die out because that trait got selected against, and since all of them are the same, that species is no longer with us. Whereas sexual reproduction, because it's taking half from one and half from the other, and you mix those two together, it's going to be a lot more variance, and it's going to increase its chances of survival. Also, as I said before, asexual reproduction is what the majority of our cells in our body use to reproduce. Alright, so let's go ahead and move forward. So, moving on with these topics, we're going to be talking about the topic of mitosis. What mitosis is the asexual reproduction of cells. So, like I said in the previous slide, asexual reproduction is just simply copying the same cell and making identical copies of it. And as you can see here, it's going to be creating two, and that's a big number. You guys have to remember how many it creates. Two identical daughter cells called diploids. And that's also very important that you guys know that. So that's why I have them super bolded and all in caps. So two identical daughter cells, diploid, mitosis. Okay, and here is a little diagram right here. You guys don't need to know the phases. However, you know, I'm still kind of good for like conversations, even though you guys probably don't have the same conversations I do with people. But I still think it's good to know. So you're gonna have your prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and then you're gonna have cytokinesis, which isn't actually a part of mitosis. It's actually its own part, which is gonna be cytokinesis. Is gonna be the splitting of the cells. You guys don't need to know it for this test, but still, I still like to teach it just because I think it's pretty important. So, like I said before, this is going to result in 2 identical daughter cells, diploids, from the process of mitosis. Meiosis, on the other hand, is going to be, as you guys could probably tell, is going to result in 4 unidentical daughter cells, which is also called haploids. The emphasis on 4 unidentical cells. And as you can tell, so here's a little diagram here. So like in the first one, you start off with the same, then it's going to double up, and then you're going to split them up, and you're going to have 2 chromosomes one, 2 chromosomes on the other, and those are going to split, and then you're going to have 4 unidentical daughter cells, as you can tell here. Unlike the previous one, I can't go back unfortunately, but unlike the previous one where you only had 2 identical daughter cells as opposed to these 4 right here. So the reason why there's 4 unidentical daughter cells is because they split twice. Simple answer. And the reason why they split twice is because they're going to be having they only need half the genetic material as a normal cell would have, because these are going to be the cells that are used for sexual reproduction. And if you have 2 cells that have the full amount of genetic material they need and put those together, that means it has twice the amount. So that's why you have to have half the amount, which is also why they're called haploid. So, alright, let's go ahead and move forward. So one thing that also happens in meiosis that does not happen in mitosis is this process called recombination or crossing over. And what crossing over or recombination is, it's when 2 adjacent chromosomes decide to exchange genes. And this is a very complex system. I've actually done a lot of research in it with Dr. Obermiller over here at Tempe. But anyways, so this is a very, there's a lot of research going into this, and things that, what happens in it, but for simple terms, it's just 2 chromosomes transferring their own gene from one to the other. As you can see here, so you have your 2 homologs right here, and then these 2 chromosomes right here decided to cross over, and then now this chromosome has a little bit of this one, and this one has a little bit of this one. So pretty simple if you're looking at it in this terms. However, keep in mind this is a very complex process. Alright, and as you can see here, this is your typical structure of DNA. Right here on the right, this is your double helix that you guys are also familiar of. And over here on the left is just pretty much just this flattened out so you can better see all the bases and such. So over here on the end, this is going to be your sugar phosphate backbone, and these are your bases in between. Your bases for DNA are going to be your G, C's, T's, and A's. That's all you guys have to know for this. And your bases for RNA is going to be all the same. It's going to be G, C's, A's, and instead of T, it's going to be replaced with the pyrimidine uracil. So that's just a fun fact there, but I believe you guys do need to know that for the exam. So for DNA replication, this is a very simplified diagram, but it gets the basics out there. So let's imagine this is your flattened out DNA strand that we showed before. So to replicate it, pretty much you have an enzyme, helicase to be exact, and that's going to split this double helix apart. And with that, many more enzymes and different ligands and such are going to be coming in, and these nucleotides are going to be binding to each other with the complementary planners. So this A is going to pair to T, this T over here is going to pair to A, so on and so forth. And then ultimately you're going to end up with 2 completely exact copies of the same DNA strand, as you can tell over here. So if you were to split this up, this is going to be AT, and then this is going to be AT, so it's going to be exactly the same, unless you have a SMP, which is going to be a single nucleotide polymorphism. That's just a different type of mutation. You can also have frame shifts, so on and so forth, but we're not going to be going into that depth in this course. Okay, and then the other thing you guys need to know for the exam is going to be something called the central dogma of biology. And what that is a very fancy term for just how DNA gets transcribed into RNA, and how RNA gets translated into amino acids which code for the protein. As you can see in this is a very, very, very simplified form of this. So the DNA goes through the process of transcription, becomes RNA, then the RNA gets translated into the amino acids over at the ribosomes, and that creates a protein which go along to the body and do their various processes. Alright, and that's it. So like I said earlier in this lecture, this is just going to be, just had a few topics that I've found a lot of people had difficulties actually visualizing and such. So I really hope this helped you guys out in the aspect. If you guys like to see more of this, just let me know and I'll be sure to try to get a video out there as quickly as I can. But stay tuned for my next video, so thanks so much. Alright, see you later guys. Alright, later.